Yo, what's up, bro? This is gonna be a short little video. Today I'm just gonna be kind of explaining how to memorize scriptures a lot easier. Cause for all my life, I was in little classes, little Bible classes, apologetics. They tell you to memorize the scripture, you'd memorize it, and then like a couple of days later, I would completely forget what the verse was. So the best way that I have learned how to memorize scriptures is try to memorize it. So, you do the normal thing, you know, just like you did in, Sunday school. Or just say it 1,000 times, keep on going. Then what you do is you actually use it. What I mean by use it. So a couple months ago, or 3 or 4 months ago now, it's kind of stupid. It sounds stupid, but I would go into Roblox and there was this like game that you can like talk to people. It's kind of like a Discord call in a way. So what I would do is I'd go on that and you can make like your own like server thing. And I'd make my own server and it would be called like Christian Talk or something, or God isn't, or God is real, prove me wrong, or something along those lines. So I do something like that, then I would use the verses in that conversation. What I actually did is, so I do this on my computer, right? So I'd have like a notes opened, and I have like 15 verses I want to memorize. So one by one, I try memorizing them, and then I actually use them that day. So I went on this thing. I'm not saying you have to do what I did, but just try to use it, right? So I would go on this game. They'd say, oh, I don't believe in this. And then I'd be like, oh, but Matthew 10:12 says this. Or Mike 16:4 says this, right? So I had memorized multiple verses. And I'm still, definitely trying to memorize more. I'm not saying that, I'm a master at this. But this is just kind of the best way that I have found to just memorize verses. And it works well, and it feels like you're actually accomplishing something, right? Because, it's cool to memorize verses, it's cool for yourself, but also you want to have a reason to do it. Like, sure, it's cool to memorize this stuff and remember this stuff for yourself, but also you want to, part of the reason you memorize verses is so when you're in conversations with, let's say, an atheist. Let's say you're in a conversation with, a friend at work or coworker or whatever. You can actually use these verses. So if you memorize a verse, instead of just, like in Sunday school where you just write it down, you actually memorize a verse, you go to work, you go to school, you get in a conversation, and you use that verse. So one that I memorized was Ephesians 2:8-9, which is, for by grace you've been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is a gift of God, not of works, lest anyone boast. So in an example like this, let's say I get in a conversation with someone, and I start talking about, let's say I spread the gospel, right? And I say, I can't do this on my own. You can't do this on your own. It is not works that get you into heaven. It is grace, because Ephesians 2:8-9 says, for by grace you've been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is a gift of God, not of works, lest anyone boast. So I just cut out I didn't cut out, but I got I can't do this on my own, and I got the not of works. So memorizing verses, if you actually use them in practice, you're going to remember this stuff better. Because you can either look back at the conversation and you remember it, or just saying it out loud to someone and seeing stuff happen in life change and have actual conversations using stuff that you've memorized. It's like it motivates you, but also it kind of instills it in your mind. Right? It's like with journaling, right? People journal, and part of the reason you journal is because you slow down and you're intentionally writing words down that are happening in your life, or as a plan or whatever. So it's helping you, kind of get it down on paper and remember it better. That's how this is working. If you're going into conversations, talking to people, right? You're talking to people, you're using these verses, you're using them in the right scenarios, then you're basically training your mind that, hey, this is important. It's just like if you read a book or you watch a movie or you play a video game, you're playing that game. So it's going to be easy for you to remember, let's say in Minecraft, it's easier for you to remember a recipe for some item when you've used it a bunch. So if you're going a bunch of conversations, using a verse a lot, then you're gonna remember it better. That's why you should also start with like very foundational verses. Don't start with some like random verse from the Old Testament that's talking about circumcision or whatever. What you do is you start with something like I was saying. Ephesians 2:8-9 is a very important verse. For by grace you've been saved. That is a very important thing because grace saves us. So it's a very, foundational verse. And, that's why John 3:16 got so popular. Is because it's very foundational to the faith. Now, chances are you probably have already memorized that. Like, heck, even non-Christians have memorized that. But the point is just try to memorize like very important foundational verses. All right, so I hope this helped you guys. If you guys are liking the content, I do got a Patreon in the description. Yeah, you can just fill that out. We got let's see, I'm like posting daily on there. You can have a one-on-one call with me if you want that for some reason. Now I'm playing around, but yeah, we got that in the description, so join it if you feel led, and have a good one.